In the winter of 2002, a 12-man reconnaissance unit entered the Coast Province Mountains of Afghanistan on what they thought was a routine Taliban sweep. Only 6 came back. And what they brought with them wasn't just trauma. It was a story so impossible the Pentagon buried it for 2 decades. Before we begin, if you're fascinated by the hidden corners of military history and the stories they don't want you to hear, hit that subscribe button. You're about to hear something that will change the way you think about what's really out there. Now, let's go back to that mountain. The air inside the tent smelled like sweat, gun oil, and cold earth. Staff Sergeant Marcus Hale sat on a folding chair, elbows on his knees, staring at the dirt floor beneath his boots. Around him, 11 other men, mostly guys he'd trained with, bled with, waited in that tense, coiled silence soldiers know too well. The kind that comes before something bad. Outside, the wind screamed across Forward Operating Base Salerno like something alive. Captain Ortiz stepped into the tent, a laminated map in one hand, a red flashlight in the other. He didn't waste time. "Gentlemen," he said, unfolding the map on a metal table, "this is a search and destroy op. Intel says there's a Taliban supply cache hidden in a cave system about 14 clicks northeast of here, up in the Spingar range." Marcus glanced at Corporal Danny Reeves, who sat beside him, chewing on a toothpick. Danny raised an eyebrow. They'd done 100 ops like this. Never easy, never clean. "Intel says the caves are old," Ortiz continued, tracing a line on the map with his finger. "Like old, pre-Soviet, maybe older. But Taliban's been using them to move weapons from the Pakistani border. We go in, we clear it, we blow the cache, we extract. 72 hours max." "Weather?" someone asked. "Bad," Ortiz said flatly. "Snow's coming. You'll have a narrow window. If it hits early, you hole up and wait it out. No heroics." Marcus felt something twist in his gut. Not fear, just instinct. The kind you get after too many tours. The kind that says, "This one's different." Questions? No one spoke. "Good. Wheels up at 400. Get some sleep." They flew in on 2 Blackhawks just before dawn, the rotors chopping through fog so thick Marcus couldn't see the ground until they were 20 feet above it. The mountains below looked like the bones of some dead god, jagged, gray, endless. The drop zone was a flat stretch of rock and ice at the base of a steep ridgeline. The moment Marcus's boots hit the ground, the cold bit through his gear like teeth. "Jesus," Danny muttered beside him, breath clouding in the frozen air. "Feels like we landed on another planet." "Stay sharp," Marcus said, scanning the ridgeline. "We're exposed here." The team moved fast, weapons up, eyes everywhere. Specialist Torres, their medic, kept close to the rear. Sergeant Lee, their demolitions expert, carried enough C4 to level a city block. Private First Class Booker, barely 21, walked like he was still trying to prove something. They climbed for 3 hours. The path was barely a path, more like a scar carved into the mountainside by centuries of wind and erosion. The air thinned, the wind howled, and the deeper they went, the quieter it got. Not peaceful quiet. Wrong quiet. "Hold up," Marcus said, raising a fist. The team froze. Marcus crouched, studying the ground. There were tracks in the snow, boot prints, recent, leading up toward a shadowed cleft in the rock face ahead. "Taliban?" Danny whispered. "Maybe." Marcus didn't like it. The prints were too big, too deep, like whoever made them was carrying something impossibly heavy. "Lee, Booker, take point. Eyes open." They moved forward. The cleft opened into a narrow canyon, walls rising 100 feet on either side. The wind died completely. It was so quiet, Marcus could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. And then, he saw it. The cave. A massive opening in the rock, maybe 30 feet high, framed by ancient stone that looked carved, not natural. Symbols were etched into the surface, Geometric patterns, spirals, shapes that didn't belong to any language Marcus recognized. "What the hell is this?" Torres whispered. "I don't know, but we're going in." The inside of the cave was cold in a way that had nothing to do with temperature. It was the kind of cold that sunk into your bones, that made your teeth ache, that felt old, like it had been waiting there for thousands of years. Marcus clicked on his headlamp. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing walls covered in more of those strange symbols. The floor sloped downward, deeper into the mountain. "This doesn't look like a Taliban cache," Danny said quietly. "No," I agreed. "It doesn't." They moved in single file, weapons raised, every footstep echoing. The tunnel twisted and turned, narrowing in places, opening into vast chambers in others. Stalactites hung from the ceiling like teeth. And then they found the bones. Scattered across the floor of a wide chamber, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Human, animal. Some so old they crumbled to dust when Booker accidentally kicked one. "What happened here?" Torres breathed. Marcus didn't answer. He was staring at something else. At the far end of the chamber, there was a doorway. Not a natural opening. This was carved, deliberate. The stone around it was smooth, polished, inscribed with more symbols. And beyond it, light. Not electric light, not firelight. Something else. Pale, flickering, wrong. "Sarge?" Danny's voice was tight. "I don't think we should go in there." Marcus felt it too. Every instinct screaming at him to turn around, to get out, to run. But orders were orders. "Lee, stay here with Torres and Booker. Rest of us, we're going in. Stay tight." They stepped through the doorway. The room beyond was massive, easily 200 feet across, the ceiling lost in shadow. The walls were lined with more carvings, figures, battles, something that looked like a ritual. And in the center of the room, there was a pit. Deep, black, wide enough to swallow a house. The light was coming from inside it. "What is that?" someone whispered. Marcus stepped closer, every nerve on fire. He looked down into the pit, and something looked back. It wasn't human. It was huge. A shape barely visible in the shifting light. Massive limbs, a head the size of a car, skin that looked like stone or leather or something in between. And it was breathing. "Fall back," Marcus said quietly. "Fall back now!" But before anyone could move, the thing in the pit moved. A sound filled the chamber, low, resonant, like the groan of a mountain splitting open. The ground beneath them trembled, and then it started to climb. Marcus didn't remember giving the order to fire. He just remembered the sound, deafening, echoing, the staccato roar of automatic weapons tearing through the chamber as the thing pulled itself up out of the pit. It was massive, 15 feet tall, maybe more. Humanoid, but wrong. Limbs too long, joints bending in ways they shouldn't, eyes that glowed faint red in the muzzle flashes. Its skin was gray, mottled, scarred, like it had been burned and healed 1,000 times. And it was fast. It lunged forward, and Private Jennings didn't even have time to scream before one massive hand closed around him and threw him across the chamber. He hit the wall with a wet crunch and didn't move. "Fall back! Fall back now!" Marcus roared, emptying his mag into the creature's chest. The bullets hit. He saw them punch through flesh, but the thing barely flinched. Danny was beside him, firing controlled bursts, face white with terror. "It's not going down!" Lee stumbled through the doorway, eyes wide. "What the fuck is that?" "Blow it!" Marcus screamed. "Blow the whole goddamn cave!" Lee didn't hesitate. He pulled the detonator from his vest, hands shaking, and started setting charges on the support pillars near the entrance. The creature roared, a sound so deep Marcus felt it in his chest, in his bones, in his teeth. It moved towards them, each step shaking the ground. Torres fired a grenade launcher. The explosion lit up the chamber, and for one brief second, he saw it clearly. Saw the scars, the chains around its wrists, old and broken, the symbols carved into its flesh. This thing had been imprisoned here, and they'd woken it up. The charges went off like the hand of God slamming down. The ceiling came apart in a cascade of stone and dust, and Marcus was thrown backward, ears ringing, vision swimming. He hit the ground hard, tasted blood, felt hands dragging him. Move! Move! Danny. It was Danny, pulling him up, shoving him toward the tunnel. Behind them, the creature screamed, a sound of rage and pain and something else, something ancient. They ran. Through collapsing tunnels, through clouds of choking dust, through darkness lit only by the dying beams of their headlamps. Marcus didn't know how many of them made it out. He just knew that when he finally stumbled into daylight, gasping, bleeding, half-deaf, there were only 6 of them left. 6 out of 12. They were extracted within the hour. No debriefing, no questions. Just a medevac, a flight back to base, and then silence. Marcus sat in the medical tent, staring at his hands. They were still shaking. Captain Ortiz came in, face unreadable. "What happened up there, Sergeant?" Marcus looked up. "You already know." Ortiz didn't blink. "No, I don't, and neither do you. You encountered a cave-in during a Taliban firefight. 6 KIA, that's the report." "That's bullshit." "That's the report." Ortiz leaned in close. "And if you want to go home in one piece, that's the story you're going to tell. Understood?" Marcus said nothing. Ortiz left. 20 years later, Marcus Hale lives in a small town in Montana. He doesn't talk about Afghanistan much, doesn't talk about that mountain. But sometimes, late at night, he dreams about the pit, about the chains, about the symbols on the walls. And he wonders, if they buried it once, how many times had it been buried before? And what happens when the next team finds it? Because somewhere, deep in the Spingard Mountains, that cave is still there, and some doors should never be opened.